Welcome back to Let's Have It Out. Doc, you see, you're saying that depoliticizing institutions might not be the solution. Because when you take out the student organizations out of the space, students suffer the most. But there is a national, what is perceived to be a national intention by particularly historically white institutions to destabilize the space. We're not sure if they're trying to depoliticize or if they're trying to demobilize. What exactly is the conversation around your space of student affairs? I mean, I'm sure you know what's the conversation? What's going on?
Look, we do have a challenge with, as I was saying, the way in which politics gets into the way of student leaders serving students, the interest of students. But I don't think that the solution, as I said earlier, is to depoliticize. I think it's critical for us. We need to rethink the space. We need to rethink the way that things are done. You need to have a plurality of voices, for example. There's institutions which have allowed both the political structures and individuals to contest. If you look at a lot of institutions, there are a lot of issues that are not being dealt with. Where are students with disabilities in our discourse?
So let's talk about University of Pretoria.
Sure.
At this university, you are allowed to contest as. Actually, let me use UNISA.
Sure.
At UNISA, when I vote as a student, I tick SASCO, I tick Youth League.
Sure.
That's what I tick, right? I don't know who those individuals are.
Student command, yeah.
Right? But when I look at the University of Pretoria, for example, you have an individual contesting a particular position, regardless of whether or not they're from wherever it is. And I have a problem with that type of politics because it comes across as though we're trying to inculcate the type of leader, or future leader, who thinks that I have the solutions for society. I can make it better. And growing up in an African community where we are told ngabantu, having been a netball player, of a sport that is predominantly English, you are told there's no I in team. But there are universities who seem to be wanting to support the independent candidate as opposed to the more politicized student, as opposed to the collective. And what's the rationale behind that?
Yeah, look, as I said, I think the biggest challenge is what most institutions have had to contend with. But as in most instances, we tend to go for extremes. I think for me, there's a need to, you can't say we must get rid of political structures, student political structures. I don't think so. It is just we need to rethink. But I think we must also create a space for individuals in the event that they want to contest. We must create space for students, as I said, plurality of voices within this conversation.
What about the narrative that student development practitioners do not like the students who are political? When you go to DLU, the development unit, as an independent of one young leader, one something, you get support. But if you come from SASCO, the EFF student command, there's antagonism towards you. What about that narrative?
Look, I think one of the things when I was at UKZN that I tried to do with the SRC was we need to create a different narrative such that the way that student leaders are perceived shouldn't be such that in a way that when you think of a student leader, immediately you think these are individuals that I don't even want to see. Because there is that perception. But it's a perception. I don't think necessarily that student affairs practitioners are averse, because most of them have been, student leaders themselves. Yes.
And that's always the issue. But you know what we are going through yourself. But how are you now coming across to be indeed the enemy?
Sure.
So what happens? Is it governance?
Yeah, look, I think when you get to the other side, you begin to see things differently. Because now, of course, you begin to realize that there's certain responsibility. I mean, you got to take responsibility for certain things and in a certain way that you do things.
Are there pressures from the air? We always say, are there pressures from above that make it difficult where you find yourself as a student development practitioner who has been a student leader before, sort of conflicted? Your heart is telling you, your soul is telling you this way, but ubas uti mazishangap.
I don't know for other people, but for me, I haven't had that kind of challenge because I think when you do everything by principle, when something is wrong, it is wrong.
Sure.
You know, and most student leaders that I've worked with, they tend to respect you for that because they realize that if you come up with something and if it's wrong, Chalufu will tell you it's wrong. And if it is right, actually, he will support you. And
quickly, I want to talk about your experiences at UKZN during Fees Must Fall.
Sure.
And the article that you wrote. Just share us, for those who don't know anything about it, share with us for a second.
No, sure. Look, I thought after quite a while that maybe I needed to put some, some of what happened on paper and wrote the article which was published in the Daily Maverick. Just to reflect on my experiences and all that. But what the Daily Maverick did not, what they cut out was a part where I was saying that we shouldn't punish young people because we shouldn't be in a situation where we mess up their futures. Because yes, wrongs had been done and all that, but they were fighting for a cause. So despite what happened to me, I still felt that we still need to support young people and ensure that we help them, we assist them in their growth and development.
Okay, now I hear what you're saying,
sure.
but what is perceived is that instead of trying to work on the toxicity of the space, we see how online voting is, we see the rules around student online voting for SRC elections, and the energies and the trend just seems as though, there is an intent by universities to demobilize students. And so this is where the contestation between demobilization and depoliticization comes in. And now, instead of doing what you are saying, so you are saying, no, let's help the students. Let's support them. They've done errors, but the trend nationally doesn't look like that from universities.
Yeah, look, I think there are some university managers, truth be told, who thrive on student differences.
I want us to continue this conversation after the ad break, Doc. We will take more of your questions and comments after the break.